Hi everyone. So this is the second session within the qualitative data analysis training series with myself, Dr Gillian Waller from Teesside University, England. This session is going to build upon the learning from the previous first session by concentrating on a specific method of qualitative data analysis, so specifically thematic analysis. So again, just to start off with the learning outcomes for this session, by the end of this session, you should be able to have a better understanding of what thematic analysis is and when it is suitable to be used. You should be able to know how to undertake a thematic analysis and what each stage of the analysis process involves. So, what is thematic analysis? So I really like the definition of thematic analysis on this slide because I just think it sums it up really well. So basically thematic analysis, it just refers to the process of coding qualitative data which can then be grouped together in order to identify key areas or themes within the data. And it results in the reporting of patterns or themes, hence the name thematic analysis, and it allows the data to be described in great detail. So what are the key characteristics of a thematic analysis? So as a method, it largely focuses on the content of the data. So what I mean by this is it focuses on what is said as opposed to thinking more deeply about what is implied or meant by a participant within a piece of data. It is most commonly employed in studies that are looking to explore the knowledge and the understanding around a predefined topic, or one that is exploring the views and experiences of specific participants. So for example, I conducted a thematic analysis on the qualitative data that I collected within my PhD study, and that was from interviews with secondary school staff and practitioners. And what I was looking to explore was the factors affecting the implementation of substance use interventions within a secondary school setting. So I did that with participants who had knowledge or sort of previous experience in that area. So this is why thematic analysis is key to why it's been chosen as the analysis method within the What's in a Meter project, as we're looking to explore participants' views around their experiences and their access to metering technology in their local area. Other important points to note about thematic analysis is the fact that it is a very commonly used analysis method in qualitative research, and often in papers when they just sort of refer to data analysis as simply qualitative analysis or even just data analysis, they're most likely referring to a thematic analysis as it's one of the most commonly used analysis methods. And a key reason behind this is the fact that it is very flexible and very adaptable, meaning that you can use different parts of the analysis process differently. So you can basically use it how you see fit within a study to be able to meet a study's needs. However, it is most frequently used as a way to determine and organise the patterns in qualitative data by being able to recognise the similarities and grouping together similar pieces of data. So how do you conduct a thematic analysis? So I think it's really important for us to talk through the sort of typical stages of a thematic analysis, especially as it will be the main method of analysis used for the data analysis within the What's in a Metre project. So the process of thematic analysis, like I mentioned before, is largely flexible, and therefore the different stages of the process are not always linear. But to simplify the process for this training session, I've just listed the 6 main steps that you would generally undertake when conducting thematic analysis in practice. Even though some of these stages might overlap, so for example, you may start coding on an early set of data and then sort of moving on to organising those into themes. But then you might find yourself going back to the coding process on later pieces of data, as you might get different insights from the later stages of data collection, and these might result in the revision of the themes that you had initially proposed. So that is quite a normal sort of part of the process. But starting with the beginning, with step 1, the first part of the process of thematic analysis involves undertaking a data familiarization step. And all this basically involves is just really looking at your data, really thoroughly sort of going through it. And the data is probably most likely to be like a transcript, so like a verbatim transcription. And even if you've conducted the data collection yourself, it can be a really sort of valuable stage to the analysis process to come back to the transcription with fresh eyes and just really read through it and understand what is being said and how. And this stage is really important in just sort of getting your head around the data, identifying any relevant or interesting pieces of data that you may have overlooked during the data collection process or during quick read-throughs. And it just acts as this really good opportunity to make any initial comments or observations about the findings. The next stage is generally to start the coding of the transcripts of the qualitative data. So coding is just a fancy way of referring to the labelling of the different concepts in order to develop specific categories based on the properties. So the coding part of the analysis is definitely one of my favourite parts of the process, as I'm quite old school and I just really like getting all of my coloured pens and highlighters out and going to town with highlighting all of the interesting and useful bits in a transcript like that one in the picture. But some researchers might use qualitative analysis software such as NVivo for this stage, as they find it helps with the coding and the managing and the storing of the analysis. And granted, using such software can make it easier to share with others if you're collaborating on a project. But personally, I do really enjoy doing everything by hand and then having like data sessions over a coffee and a cake with other members of the team. But equally, it's just whatever works for you. And especially in this current COVID climate, when it's harder to get together with people, it might not be possible to do these kind of things face to face. So it's likely that the codes that are generated in this stage undergo a process of refinement and development, whilst the analysis of any of the data that has been collected is ongoing. Like I keep saying, it's this highly iterative process, and hence the earlier data collection can influence the later stages. The next stage of the process is to organise the codes that you've identified into themes and sub-themes. So a theme can basically be defined as a recurrent or unifying concept or statement about the subject of inquiry. So by grouping together analogous codes, It makes it easier to see specific areas or themes that are emerging from the collected data. So in my previous experience of conducting thematic analysis, a way in which I've organised the codes into themes is to arrange the codes into tables by theme and sub-theme. And on the right here is an example of one of the coding tables I did as part of my PhD work. And it can be also really useful just to write down all the individual codes on pieces of paper, as then you have them in front of you, and then you can just physically sort of put them into groups and move them around and just have a play with them. I've also done mind maps, which are again another really useful tool when trying to determine how the codes link together and how they can affect or influence each other. And again, this picture on the right here is an example of one of the mind maps that I made during my PhD, and I used these to organise the codes into themes and assess how they all linked and fit together. And I just think it's a really nice and visual way of presenting your findings in a way that's both really clear to the reader and you, how the codes are arranged into themes. So this stage of organising the codes into theme is again very iterative, and the themes and sub-themes that are being proposed initially can be reviewed and revised during data collection in order to come up with a definitive list of themes and sub-themes that are relevant and that are the best fit to organise and interpret your findings. The penultimate stage of the process is just the defining and the naming of the themes that have arose from the data and the subsequent coding. It's really important that the themes are defined adequately, because so then it's clear to the user of the data and they can understand how the data has been grouped together. And then just the final stage of the thematic analysis process that I've included on here is obviously the write-up stage. So this might be the write-up for a report, or for a peer-reviewed article, or for a thesis or dissertation, but whatever it is, it's important for the write-up to be as relevant and as accessible to the target audience as possible, whether it's intended for other academics, policymakers, or even a layperson with no previous experience of research. Therefore, the level of technical information or jargon that is included should be really sort of carefully considered and thought about to make it as accessible as possible. And I've just included this slide, sorry, I'll move myself there, as I just think it's a really good overview and description of the thematic analysis process. So you can always have a pause of this and have a read through yourself if you want to have another look over the different stages with a description. So yeah, just to finish off this session, we can revisit our learning outcomes from the beginning. So we've gone over and talked through what a thematic analysis is and what the key features of it are. Then we've gone through what the typical steps you would usually follow to undertake a thematic and data analysis are. And finally, the further reading, again, that I've suggested for this session is very similar to the first session, really, as again the first two are textbooks that I found really useful and detailed when doing thematic analysis. And the third one is a specific paper that I found really helpful for understanding thematic analysis and looking at the theme and theory development. So links to the next session. Session 3 is going to focus on exploring the strengths and limitations of thematic data analysis, and it'll conclude the qualitative analysis training package. So, thank you.